Hi and welcome to the Inside Out Effect podcast, Unleash the Power Within. I'm your host Stephen Jakes, and today this is episode 2, which is all about cause and effect, or cause and symptom. This is following up from a great episode that I did in episode 1. If you haven't listened to it, I'd go back and check that out. But I did an amazing interview with former boxing champion, IBO welterweight champion Billy Schwer, and his struggles and how he became successful in his field. So, if you have an interest in health, in personal development, or if you're struggling with mental health, such as anxiety, depression, ADHD, PTSD, trauma, all forms of abuse and limiting beliefs, or if you just feel like you can't get on in life and generally struggling overall, then this is the podcast for you. Why, I hear you ask? Well, this is a podcast that will not only unlock a world of potential for you, but it will also answer the many issues and conundrums that most people face in their everyday life, including issues with physical health, mental health, which is really emotional health, and to what keeps us stuck and stops us from achieving goals, achieving your goals, achieving success, happiness, and living a positive life. So, after years of research, dissecting and scrutinising the current mainstream understanding of how our minds and our body works, and dismantling the current academic, philosophical and accepted models of what causes mental health issues, emotional states, internal behaviours, our actions, our limiting beliefs and what creates and causes our identity, I have discovered how they can all of them can be changed, fixed and healed. I'm also going to reveal why it's important and it's almost impossible to realise that we can't solve our own issues. Very, very difficult to do that. And why the current understanding and teachings of our mind and body, proliferated by so many alleged professionals, is flawed and incorrect. Otherwise, everyone's issues would have been solved, right? And why so many people are stuck, struggling and suffering today, even after they've sought and sought and invested in help or professional help in whatever form they were led to. So how can this be the case? And how was I, a failed entrepreneur, was able to crack the code to which to date has helped me heal and solve depression, anxiety, ADHD, PTSD, trauma, all forms of abuse in all forms, from sexual to physical, addictions, and much, much more for hundreds and hundreds of people, where so many others have failed? Good question, right? Well, before I go into this detail, I would like to share a little bit of where I was in the journey of life and how you could say how I was pushed or led to discover what I've uncovered. You see, for many years I too was completely broken, mentally and emotionally, even contemplating suicide on a daily basis. At this point in time in life, I'd lost my business, therefore losing my income, my home, my partner who had left me taking my children, and having lost my personal wealth and was about to go bankrupt. So as you can imagine, things weren't great for me, and life at the time had served me a horrendous set of circumstances. I had nowhere to go. I had no one to turn to, because the only people who I could have turned to were in fact the ones that had created the situation which I now found myself in. Day after day, whilst lying in my bed, I would mentally rehearse stepping in front of a locomotive train. I'd even found and discovered the exact spot of where I was going to execute the plan, having overcome the fear. You see, as a young child, I was fascinated by the trains, and I grew up playing on the train track, getting up to all sorts of antics, so I knew exactly where to go. I clearly remember one warm spring evening. I pretty much drank a bottle of vodka and I made my way to the old alleyway near where I used to live, determined to get up the embankment and throw myself under the next commuter train which was making its way from London. In front of me was this bent up, damaged, broken chain link fence, which in ordinary circumstances I would have quite easily navigated and climbed over. But I was so angry and drunk that I couldn't actually navigate it and kept climbing over it and falling over. You see, What happened next was quite extraordinary and still to this day leaves me questioning reality. Because literally at that point in time, in a secluded alley by the train track, appeared out of nowhere an old friend of mine's older brother, Jason, who funnily enough was a therapist. I think he's actually a counsellor, but "Hello mate, what are you up to?" he said. I said, "Oh, I'm alright," I slurred. "I'm just trying to get up there. I've had enough. I just don't want to be here anymore. I'm done." To which he replied, "Don't be such a soppy stod." He sat me down on a bench close by and we chatted around half an hour with me pouring out my heart as to what had happened. He took what was left of the vodka from me, told me that this wasn't going to help me, and to be quite honest, Jason was built like a brick wall, so I wasn't going to argue with him, and off I trundled back home to sleep off the alcohol. Now, for many people who know me, or who knew me, they would probably be completely oblivious to the fact that happy old Steve was so broken and in so much internal pain, and couldn't leave his bed for months, only leaving it to eat and use the toilet, and wanted to end his life. So why are people so oblivious? Well, mainly because the majority of people are so totally absorbed with their own lives, their own issues and problems. And for some, maybe they're just so focused on getting ahead financially and acquiring stuff and material possessions that they become blind to others people's pain and suffering. Which, in essence, was the root cause of all my internal pain and distress. And remember, we're all great liars. And we all hide our pain and project outwardly that everything's all right and tickety-boo, when really it's not. We all go through those dark times in our lives and no one is excluded or immune. Often, we can experience times where you may lose your house, your home, your business, your career, your true love, which happened to me, your children, your assets or your money, your personal wealth, your lover, and everything you've spent years building and growing. It could all seemingly come crashing down into financial ruin and loss and destruction almost instantly and overnight, which, unfortunately, believe it or not, is exactly what happened to me. The sad and undeniable truth of these horrific personal experiences, which finally pushed me over the edge and broke me to reach that point, was that all of those dark times that I was experiencing was due to, and in most part, created and caused by the people that I had trusted, loved, and thought the world of. These are people that I'd shared countless memories and experiences with over many years. Some I'd holidayed with, travelling to Europe with, following the mighty Spurs, and I even shared season tickets and regularly travelled to and from games with them, and sometimes we'd hire a limousine, for those special games. People who I had treated to all expenses spa weekends in one of the most prestigious and luxury 5-star hotels in the UK. People who I had saved from becoming homeless, bankrupt and losing their home. I even helped fund marriages and get new properties, and I even helped them create better lives for themselves. You see, I was always a very generous guy and at the time was very successful. I always helped people when I could. I even helped one particular guy who used to work for me who told me he had a serious drug addiction and needed time off work to go into rehab. Something in me at the time really admired his honesty. And I said it was great that he was taking positive action to better himself, and that not only would I support him, but I guaranteed him his job when he got out several months later, so he didn't have to worry about that and could put all his focus on getting better. Several years later, that same guy went on to steal around £15,000 from me, which ultimately led to the demise of the small business that I'd managed to salvage after the collapse of my 5 large businesses, which almost employed 80 staff with several offices across Essex. Sadly, it also cost several people their jobs, and these were the ones who had been very loyal and stuck with me from the very beginning to the end. I mean, there's so many other things that I could reel off and list, like the £1 million fraud which was being committed in my name, investors who offered help and support only to come in and steal staff and IT equipment overnight. But I think you already get the picture. The level of betrayal, treachery and dishonesty and lies by these people masquerading as friends is immeasurable and even difficult to fathom, especially when you don't operate that way in everyday life. Some of these people even after they did that, sought to destroy and sabotage everything I was trying to achieve again in my life afterwards. What is harder for me to comprehend is that people who were currently in my life at the time, who had seen and witnessed everything I'd gone through, the loss of everything, and saw what had happened to me, decided, in their infinite wisdom, that it was okay to do it to me all over again. So I learned a very difficult and painful lesson about people, whether in romantic relationships, friendships, or business. That lesson is that even the closest people to you and those who will confess to love you and claim to be loyal to you have the capacity to completely betray you in an instant for financial, social, or materialistic personal gain. So what is the measure of betrayal? I once come across a great analogy of betrayal. Betrayal is the inversion of trust. You cannot be betrayed by anyone unless you have, by definition, given them your trust. And trust is the precondition and bond required for all social relationships. So to betray someone and to be on the receiving end of betrayal is to inherently demolish that foundation of an individual's ability to form any future healthy relationships again, without experiencing doubt, fear, and skepticism. Personally, I think this is to be inherently evil, very sinister, and can potentially destroy someone's life. When an individual reaches a point where they can trust no more, it can prevent them from achieving success, having a deeply loving relationship. It can even kill an individual's goals and aspirations dead before they've even started and stop them in their tracks. The feelings of betrayal can be so deeply scarring to someone that some people can never get past it. And if they do, it can take years, sometimes decades, to overcome it and make peace with it. As Dante alludes to in his book The Inferno, where he derives our conception of hell, at the very bottom, at the pit of hell, he put Satan himself. But one level above that, he put those who betray. I invite you just to sit and think about that for one moment. I wonder how many incredibly great people over the years never went on to become amazing, incredible individuals who could have made such a huge impact in the world or to society and never got to experience the wonderful things that everything life has to offer because they stopped themselves through the fear of being betrayed, or because in the past they've been subjected to it. Now, I'm obviously speaking from experience, and had I have ended my life, well, I wouldn't have been able to help the hundreds and hundreds of people that I have done, and I would never have learned this amazing process, which actually fixes almost everything. Like I say to most people who work with me, that other than being murdered, kidnapped, or losing a limb, I've pretty much been subjected to and experienced almost everything life can throw at one individual. Sometimes I actually think to myself that most people I tell this to must listen and look at me and think, wow, this guy's full of shit. I mean, really? How can one person go through all of that in a lifetime? Having been abused as a child in more ways than one, ostracised and bullied in my teens, having people sabotage romantic relationships, breaking my heart, the death of my baby's daughter, assaulted by partners and their family members, made bankrupt through lies and deceit, losing my house and my home, my cars, all of my wealth, businesses, and my partner and my children multiple times. I mean, the list is endless. You can probably see why most people think, wow, this guy is full of shit. But sadly, all of this is true. Anyway, I hope this has painted a vivid picture for you, and now you can understand why, for many years, I was completely broken, mentally, emotionally, and even contemplating suicide on a daily basis. So let's go back to what I said at the very beginning and ask the question as to why did I feel the need to spend years of doing research, dissecting the current mainstream understanding of how our mind and our body works, and More importantly, dismantling the current academic, physical and accepted models of what causes mental health issues, what causes emotional states, internal behaviours, our actions and our limiting beliefs, and what creates and causes our identity and makes us who we are. And how was I able to crack the code? To which today has helped me completely heal and solve depression, anxiety, ADHD, PTSD, trauma, abuse, addictions for hundreds and hundreds of people. And how have I discovered that they can all be changed and fixed and healed? And having listened to my backstory now, I think you'll probably realise that I'm pretty qualified to address this issue. Well, let us begin, shall we? I, just like the many millions of people worldwide who have been repeatedly told that we need to trust or have to trust our doctors, psychologists, psychotherapists, counsellors, nutritionists, neuroscientists, and that list goes on, by the way, because we are told that these are qualified professionals or certificated individuals and have all the answers. They have all the knowledge because greater minds before them have it all mapped out. It's all been proven scientifically. It's all been worked out, and we just need to listen and follow their health model because they have spent years in education, years in training, practicing and learning what all these greater minds and experts before them have established as fact. And therefore, we now need to agree to that contract of authority or that contract of academia because it's the societal and accepted collective benchmark for expertise and knowledge, right? So I did. I blindly went in trusting and believing. And for many years I would turn up religiously, never missing a week, pouring out my heart, talking about how I was feeling to my qualified therapist with her master's degree of, by the way, she would constantly remind me of, asking me, how did this feel? And how did that make me feel? And what if I looked at it this way? Or how about recognising it was all my parents' fault? So again, I trustingly, naively and gullibly listened acutely to every last word she would relay and suggest because, well, she had the master's degree and she was qualified and I was this broken individual who obviously didn't have a clue of how to operate in this world anymore. So who am I to question it, right? I clearly remember telling her on my introductory session that I believed that there was something severely wrong with me or there's something wrong with my internal operating system. But I was reassured over and over again. And for those of you who have been or are in therapy sessions with counsellors or psychotherapists now, you will probably be told the same line that all I had to do was keep turning up every week. And in her words, that in time it would all resolve and I would just learn to live with it, cope with it and manage it. And I would ride off into the sunset, happy and free of the pain, which of course was the exact reason why I was there. Marvellous. Splendid, I thought. Exactly what the doctor ordered, excuse the pun. But after years of attending and being told that I had to live with this internal pain and manage these debilitating feelings, learning coping strategies and how to distract myself with this and that and how to look at things differently or reframe them, which in definition is getting me to lie to myself, which never really made any sense, and how the hell was that going to benefit me? As well as being told that I should believe that if I could understand the logic of why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling and recognise the who, the how and the when, then apparently all of my issues will cease to be. And who was I to argue? I mean, she had the qualifications, she had the degree, which she kept reminding me of. So who am I to question the superior knowledge, right? So let's ponder on that statement just for 1 second. If I could understand logically how I'm feeling. Well, these now, I've come to learn, are two completely different separate human modalities. Logic is logic, and feelings, or energy, is exactly that. Feelings and energy. In hindsight, it's absolutely insane to think that you can feel logic. And therefore, it's insane to think that we can logically understand feelings. And those that have pursued this insanity have created labels for these emotional or energetic experiences. These are depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, trauma bonding, the inner child, ADHD, OCD, or other disorders. The list of the labels is endless, all of which have been created by so-called experts who cannot and do not solve these problems. So the problem society all faces now is that because you trust these qualified people and give them authority, you will believe what these so-called alleged experts will say without evidence or proof. You will agree with a diagnosis or a label, and now you identify with it, and then listen to their ridiculous solutions on how to cope, live and manage your problem whilst never dealing with the issue that actually caused it or created it. Now, the chances are that they will firstly suggest that you need a lifestyle change. You need to exercise or change your diet or go to nutrition, vitamins and supplements. They will also suggest doing yoga or Pilates or start a new hobby or start spiritual practices and medicate. And don't forget the good old CBD oil as well. I mean, I've heard crazy solutions like increase your sea salt intake or drink better water or change your sleep patterns and have earlier nights. I've even witnessed from so-called experts on social media claiming that depression is caused by being on your phone before you go to sleep. I mean, seriously. The thing is that all these options sound very nice and lovely, and if that's what works for you and you're happy living with your problem and taking the easy option, then be my guest. But sadly and unfortunately, the vast majority of people will go and see their GP or their doctor, who will then prescribe a concoction of pharmaceuticals and drugs which can leave people feeling sick, unwell and dysfunctional at the same time. Remember, it does state and quote that by taking these drugs, it may cause side effects and cause other health issues. In essence, all that drug doing is shutting off the signal from your body, tricking you into thinking that the problem's gone away. So my question is this: how does taking a bunch of toxic and harmful chemicals actually deal and solve the root cause to the labels or the issues that individuals are experiencing worldwide? How do these chemicals have the ability to go back to the original event created in the past that's caused you to now experience anxiety, depression, PTSD, or whatever you're going through, and change the information that you've stored subconsciously? Well, they don't. Almost everything I have stated earlier are all symptom pacifications and distractions. And that will, in most cases, mean that you will have your problem indefinitely or for a long period of time. And, in my experiences, are also the main causes of deteriorating physical health or organ failure. So, if you don't know what causes a problem, how can you be qualified to deal with or treat or solve any problem? They can't. So they make up shit and give it a label. They analyse the crap out the symptom and come up with loads of explanations as to what it's like to have it, what you'll be experiencing and how you will behave with your so-called disorder or issue, which you now have to become a victim to, and a victim to the symptom management paradigm. In the many years of successfully getting rid and healing and removing anxiety, depression, ADHD, PTSD, grief, phobias, fears, I've not ever and have never used any of the suggested solutions because they do not deal or address the root cause. Although I would like to add that sometimes in unusual circumstances, life itself will resolve these issues naturally. And it's also good to have healthy, positive habits. I certainly would not suggest anyone not to exercise or eat healthy or be positive about nutrition, but if it's being suggested that you do these to solve a mental or emotional health issue, then you're bang in trouble and it will never work no matter how long you persist at it. Like I said, sometimes life can resolve an issue naturally. An example would be if you were single and you were feeling alone and lonely and despondent and you found and entered a new loving relationship, you would no longer feel alone and lonely And voila, those feelings would now be resolved. But, and this is the big but, usually in my experiences, these are very surface level, and they're far lying deeper issues which need to be found and healed. Sadly, it's those deeper issues which we have not dealt with or healed that lead us to create similar future experiences again. Why? Because all of our decisions, actions and behaviours are driven and motivated by those thoughts, feelings and beliefs of the past, and therefore everything will be realised as a self-fulfilling prophecy. The outcome has already been determined before you've started whatever it is. A new business, relationship, career, romantic relationship, and it will prove you right and correct every single time. So right now there's a good chance you may be feeling challenged by the information which I'm now presenting. There's a good chance that you're feeling triggered and you still cannot grasp the concept that doing is not being. Now, you may be triggered because, especially if you've dedicated time and money into learning a therapy, a modality, or spent hours and hours listening to podcasts and reading books, agreeing with the memes, or watching videos on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. You've got to recognise that these videos are great and designed on purpose to elicit and create positive emotions that make it so easy and effortless. Especially those motivational videos which tell you that all you got to do is get up and make your bed and go to the gym and do an hour's meditation and write down a list, do your positive affirmations, take a walk in nature and eat a healthy lunch, and the whole gratitude thing in your life will magically change. Sure, that will work if you've never experienced any crap in your life. And if you do that every day and that works for you, you could make some videos and post it. I think your ego would probably love that. But I really do need to be absolutely clear on this, and I can assure you 100% that it's all about cause and effect. Everything has a cause and everything has an effect. A symptom, which will manifest itself as either positive or negative. Well, I'm glad to say, at the end of many, many years investing into all of these so-called experts and their practices, their advice and their processes at quite a lot of money, at quite a cost financially, but not only in financial, but also in time, energy and faith, I come to this conclusion. That this was, and I can categorically say, this was absolute BS. Even dedicating myself to other numerous alternative therapies, which funny enough all claim the same results rhetoric of this works and you'll be transformed human afterwards, all ended up in the same disappointing outcome, which almost made me end up taking my own life. So trusting these so-called self-proclaimed experts with their degrees and certificates, with their level 1 this and their level 3 that, I was actually left in a far worse state than when I started, because we have to recognise that when I started these journeys, these agreements with these frauds, that I was given hope, faith and trust that I would feel normal again. And now, at the end of this journey, I'm feeling exactly the same, but now I'm living without any hope and faith and trust or belief. I mean, if the experts can't fix me, then where do I go? Who do I turn to next? Just because somebody's qualified as a hypnotherapist or a counsellor, for example, it doesn't mean they know how to solve mental or emotional problems. Or they don't even know how to find it and remove it. They are just trained in a process. They're not trained in finding the root cause. So no wonder there are so many addicts, alcoholics, suicides, divorces, and our prisons are full of people, as well as having a thriving and booming pharmaceutical industry. If people cannot get the result from the qualified experts to solve their problems and take the pain away, then the only option is to give up, numb the pain, or take whatever drug they throw at you, just so you can function and get through the day somehow and in some way. And for those individuals who feel that pharmaceutical chemicals are not the answer, or they feel uncomfortable taking them because they have a fear of depending on them indefinitely, then it's gin and tonic, the wine or the vodka, or whatever drink they like, which will be their chosen option. Others will choose a constant flow of cannabis or cocaine. Some will choose gambling, sex, even watching porn. All of which, some of those I'd use myself. Why? Well, because people will find anything to distract themselves from the internal pain and suffering to give them a feeling of relief or a temporary high or fix, just to make life feel like it's actually worth living. If you're not wired that way, then it usually is a positive habit, using exercise or being with nature or meditation, which are the options chosen. But all of these activities are just all distractions to soothe the symptoms and move away from the discomfort, and will never address the cause, and the problem usually exists forever. See, we need to recognise that as human beings, we will buy products and services and buy into a belief system based upon emotion. And then we use logic and reason to justify the decisions, the actions and the choices. When we allow ourselves to become hijacked by a belief system or academic qualifications and our emotions because we have a vested interest in someone or something, we lose the ability to remain objective, critically think, and cause us to blatantly ignore the obvious red flags and continue with the actions and processes which do not work for us, deluding ourselves that what we are investing in is solving our problem. This therefore ultimately means that it becomes impossible to recognise the negative consequences of continuing with something because we have established it as a positive belief or investment. Like I said, just because someone is qualified in a process or modality like CBT, counselling or hypnotherapy, for example, doesn't mean they know what causes mental health issues or those physical health issues. It just means they're trained in a process. So now I guess if you're listening to this, I'm really sorry to be the bearer of bad news. And this may be destroying your belief systems and the investment you've put into years of YouTube, Facebook, spiritual learnings. But distractions will never solve the problem, however great it all sounds and feels doing these practices. Now, it's not to say that there's zero benefit to those types of therapies and practices, because some cases, logically, it can benefit, but only if it's a logical problem. And some people, it's just required to take the first step. The one thing I've come to learn through this journey is that awareness is really just the first step. And the vast majority of people live in a state of denial and reframing negatives into positives. So many people confused becoming aware or just recognising those people, events, situations and circumstances as doing the inner work or healing when it isn't. So let's delve and dive a little deeper into the cause and effect conundrum and apply this to an actual real life scenario. Before I do this though, I would just like to apologise to any plumbers in advance. If you're reading or listening to this, please, I haven't singled you out, and this isn't an attack on your industry, but it does allow me to demonstrate this problem precisely and accurately. So, the plumber analogy. So I want you to imagine you've just woken up and come downstairs one cold and crisp winter's morning, and to your horror, you see a huge puddle of water on your lovely kitchen floor. You look up, and above it you see water running down the kitchen light and dripping into that puddle of water. So, what should I do? Should I, 1, just become aware that there's an issue and get a diagnosis and live with that problem and learn to cope with that leak indefinitely? Should I, 2, join a support group where I can meet others that have had a similar problem to discuss how these issues have affected me? Or 3, buy a book on understanding leaks, because when I can understand the problem, the issue will go away? Number 4, should I seek counsel with friends, family or stranger to express how I've become a victim to this situation and how the leak has impacted my life? Should I, 5, meditate and visualise a future where now I have a life without a leak or a puddle in my kitchen and trust the universe? Should I? 6. Find a life coach or a personal development coach to help me and teach me new tools to move past this issue so I can now experience a more positive life. Should I? Number 7, reframe the issue and turn it from a negative to a positive by convincing myself that actually now it's easier to clean the kitchen floor. Should I? Number 8, find the leaking tap and massage it for around about an hour whilst tapping the pipe in lots of different areas and changing the energy. Should I? 9, add some pharmaceuticals or some chemicals or add nutrients, vitamins and supplements to the water system. Or 10, should I get a better paid job or dump the house that I'm living in and find another house to move into which doesn't have a leaking tap? Should I? 11, add some CBD oil, essential oils, cannabis, MDMA, maybe put some alcohol or some cocaine in the water system? Or 12, find an expert, a plumber, who knows what's caused the leak and can fix it, therefore removing the problem so you no longer have it, allowing you to live a happy and stress-free life without your leak or your issue. You see, this probably explains why we allegedly have millions of people on NHS waiting lists and a massive mental health crisis in the UK. But let me be quite clear. If you're not delivering a solution to people's problems, then you are inherently part of and creating the problem. You cannot coach your way out of mental health issues. You cannot learn or understand your way out of mental health issues, and you cannot exercise or drug your way out of mental health issues. Anyone who claims differently are trying to make you a customer long term, and there will always be a financial motive behind it. You see, sadly, it seems that we're living in crazy times where money now is most people's gob and their primary focus. And therapists are more concerned about themselves and protecting their accreditation, which ultimately really means they don't have your health and well-being truly at heart, even though they claim to, and it's their intention. So now we've got the blind leading the blind, and people will always inherently look for the easiest option, which will take the least amount of time, money and effort. In the famous words of the great Wayne Dyer, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Which means that there is an answer, there is a solution. Find and remove the cause, and there is no effect. So this is the end of chapter 1, and in the next chapter or episode, we are going to dive deeper into the great reveal of the cause. And there are many, many causes. And I will expose why the majority of these therapies don't really work as well, as all these issues need to be addressed to get a full and total healing. So if you're struggling with any of the issues mentioned in this podcast and you want to be free of them, please go visit my website at healingthemind.co.uk. And once again, thank you for listening.